Number 6 USC takes down the Sun Devils 42-25. Final score here at the LA Coliseum. ASU falls to 1-4 on the year, their worst start since 1976. Welcome to our postgame analysis. My name is Nick Borgia. Alongside me is Hode Urbino. And Hode, in our preview, you mentioned that this game, your prediction was going to be 41-25. You're 1 point away, but did ASU get to that point in the way that you expected tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were some more predictable than unpredictable elements over here. I think the fact that the offense was able to score 17 points in the second half and really keep it a close game, but they were just down 4 points at halftime, I think maybe that was somewhat unexpected because you really didn't know how this team was going to come out after that Utah loss, which really was a very, very convincing defeat at home. But I think I also said in the preview that maybe sometimes it's good for this team to just really get away from Tempe. There's just a lot of noise, a lot of chatter about what's going to happen with the program, who's going to be the next head coach, who's going to be the next athletic director. So maybe playing away from Tempe was actually going to do this team some good. I don't know if that element was really that crucial tonight in the Coliseum. But nonetheless, I think there definitely were some pleasant surprises in terms of seeing how the offense played in the first half. And I thought the defense definitely had its moments late in the second half and really almost for most of the third quarter. But when we saw a team that does not do well preventing the opponent from converting third downs, USC was 8 of 9, so that's probably not a surprise. To see ASU commit seven penalties, that's probably not a surprise either. So, I mean, there were some elements tonight that unfortunately were really just a cruel deja vu from earlier week. So, yeah, I mean, I know my score prediction was kind of weird, and I was 1 point off. But nonetheless, if somebody betted against ASU to cover, so maybe that's a small victory in that sense that ASU was able to defy the bettors, I guess, in that case. But nonetheless, obviously it's still disappointing that ASU actually played a better first half, but second half is a whole different story.
So if we hone into the offense, Emory Jones, in my opinion, had one of his most comfortable-looking games out there, really commanded the offense in that first half. Got off to a slower start in the second half, but overall, what was your main takeaway from the offensive performance tonight?
Yeah, I thought Emory Jones in the first half was really much more decisive. Even though they did do some huddling, I definitely felt that there was a better rhythm for the offense in the first half. Also felt that Emory Jones was really going through his progressions, and I give credit to Glenn Thomas, who I don't think called really good games against Eastern Michigan and Utah. And even Oklahoma State, I would say, in the first half. But the ASU offensive coordinator, I thought, called a really, really good game in the first half tonight against USC. The problem is that when it comes to halftime adjustments, and some people might overrate him, some people might underrate him, but nonetheless, I just thought that this really was a different offense in the second half, an offense that USC was able to really stop and distract time and time again. USC had 5 sacks in the game. All of them were in the second half. ASU actually ran the ball pretty well in the first half, 101 yards. And we talked about coming into this game that if there's one Achilles heel for this USC defense, maybe not the entire USC team, is that they're one of the worst run defenses in the Pac-12. They're yielding over 170 yards. So ASU in the first half, again, if you're going back to what we expected and not expected, and we expected them to run the ball well, and they did that in the first half. In the second half, because of those 5 sacks, ASU actually had minus 13 yards rushing. And again, it wasn't a great deficit, so it's not like ASU really had to pepper the ball in the air or the field in the second half. They really could have played their offense. But when the first 3 possessions of the second half were punts, two of them were 3 and out, I thought that really set the tone for the ASU offense really for the rest of the game. And I thought, on the other hand, the USC defense just really gained more and more confidence because this really wasn't a lights-out unit by any means. I mean, I think now that I saw USC tonight and I saw Utah last week, I mean, I think that Utah, especially defensively, is a much better team than USC. And I think that really showed how ASU struggled last week against Utah. And really, for the first half, didn't struggle at all against the Trojans. But again, give credit to USC. In the second half, what was really a whole different story, and this ASU offense really reverted, if you will, to the poor performances we saw against Utah and against Eastern Michigan, for example. and that's why the comeback was really thwarted in the second half.
And defensively, you touched on it a little bit about that third down conversion for USC that was so successful. And we just heard from Corey Bethley, who really felt the defense is, that losing part of the game for the Sun Devils. What was your main takeaway from the defense as a whole?
Yeah, I just think that when it comes to the passing game, I think USC and their quarterback Caleb Williams was absolutely on a mission to show that 180 yards, I believe, passing they had in a very tight win at Oregon State was an absolute fluke. And sure enough, he almost doubled that output from last week. Had over, I think, 343 passing yards, if I'm not mistaken. And more importantly, really just having such a gifted dual threat quarterback, he really gave ASU a lot of fits. I mean, it just seems like they're just able to get you mid on him for tackle for loss, for a sack. He would just slip through. I mean, I think somebody joked on Twitter, that he must lather himself in a bunch of baby oil in the pregame or something, because he's absolutely beyond elusive. And this ASU defense really had issues. But again, I thought in the first half they definitely did a much better job containing him as much as they could. But again, it just came down again to the adjustments in the second half. And I just felt that Caleb Williams was really able to operate the offense in a much efficient manner. Not that USC ran for a ton of yards at all in the second half, or even for the game for that matter, but it seems like just when they needed that big run to really keep the ASU defense off balance, they were able to get it. But Caleb Williams showed why he's one of the best quarterbacks, not only Pac-12 but also in the nation. I feel like he was definitely on a mission to show that what happened last week against Oregon State was an absolute aberration. I think that ASU, again, they took perhaps some good elements from that Oregon State game, and the way that Beaver defense played last week. Were able really to contain Caleb Williams and the USC offense. But like I said, the second half was really a different story. And I'm a big believer that when the offense does not play well, and like I said, ASU punted on his first three possessions of the second half, two of them were 3 and outs. I think at some point that really demoralized the defense so much that they really have their breaking point. And USC scored in the third quarter. They scored with 1 minute and 10 seconds. ASU was like this close, pitching a shutout in the third quarter against USC. But again, the ASU offense was not there to back them up, and they did actually a much better job in the first half, probably giving some hope for this ASU defense that, okay, look, we're gonna go toe to toe, and if you guys can get a stop, we'll do something with it. Tamarcus Davis was actually intercepted Caleb Williams, the first interception that Caleb Williams has threw all season long, and the ASU offense in the ensuing drive is not able to do anything with it. So I also feel that when Tamarcus Davis, for example, does have that interception, and the ensuing drive by ASU, the offense absolutely doesn't do anything. I believe it was a 3 and out. That's just really just more fuel to fire when it comes to just really defense that really reaches breaking point, that felt they could do all they could, for most of the game. But when you don't get that support from the offense, it's really hard. I mean, sure, there's some issues with untimely penalties and really not be able to contain Caleb Williams at all. But nonetheless, I just feel that the ASU defense, much like the ASU offense, just had like a really horrible second half in comparison to the first half. And against a team like USC, you just simply cannot get away with that.
Well, looking ahead to next week, the Sun Devils will be hosting Washington and Tempe, who just lost to UCLA last night. So may no longer be ranked. We'll have to see what happens on Monday. But what's your early opinion about that matchup, Hode?
Yeah, honestly, Nick, I've been going back and forth thinking like, okay, is Washington now having that first loss right here in Pasadena, not too far from the LA Coliseum, is that a good thing for ASU? Is that a bad thing for ASU? I mean, yeah, maybe they get like one more day rest than ASU does, but they have to make another pretty long road trip 2 weeks in a row. It's really going to be interesting. One thing I do know that if ASU does lose against Washington, and maybe because they're not a ranked team, I don't know if that's gonna look maybe even worse in the grand scheme of things. But the 1-5 start that ASU is staring at now as a possibility is going to be their worst start since 1942. So this season is starting to be historic, really, for all the wrong reasons. But in all honesty, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, this was a loss. ASU is still seeking its first Pac-12 win. They're seeking their first win against an FBS team. I mean, almost a month of the date, pretty much. And I went just past midnight. That's when ASU last won against Northern Arizona on September 1st, and it just seems like a million years ago. So much has happened since then. But I feel that if you're an ASU fan, there is some hope that this ASU team is closer tonight, definitely compared to last night, and definitely compared to 2 weekends before. When they lost to Eastern Michigan, that maybe, just maybe, this team can turn the corner. Look, I'm definitely not predicting, obviously, any contention for the Pac-12 crown or anything like that. But I'm just really curious to see how this team does play against Washington. I think it's really going to say a lot. When you talk about possible progression from the Utah game to the USC game, now can ASU coming back home really just be more effective, eliminate some of those mistakes that are just haunting them week after week after week, and maybe finally get that elusive Pac-12 victory. And don't forget that after the Washington game, they are going to enter the bye week, and the worst thing a team can do is just have a horrible record, winless in the Pac-12 going into the bye week. You're just stewing in those juices, so to speak, now an extra week. And even though I think there's on paper very two easy contests, granted on the road, but at Stanford and Colorado, which I definitely think are winnable games for Arizona State. Nonetheless, you want to go into the bye week with some kind of momentum that the progress that you saw between the Utah and the USC game, now that progress between the USC game and the Washington game is actually going to result in that win. But there's a lot of things for Arizona State to figure out. Baby step in the right direction tonight, perhaps, but I think all of us would like to see what they do or don't do against Washington to see if this team is actually closer now than they were just a week or two ago to getting over the hump.
And people have to remember, Hode, that was the number 6th ranked USC Trojans out there tonight. So not an easy opponent by any means. ASU hung with them till the very end, pretty much, till 6 minutes in the fourth, and in my opinion. So you got to keep that in mind. Baby steps, as you mentioned. But anyways, thank you so much for your insight, Hode. As always, keep it locked in at DevilsDigest.com, at DevilsDigest on Twitter. We'll have all your practice coverage for this week and obviously the game coverage next week against Washington in Tempe. For the rest of Devil's Digest, that's Hode Urbino. I'm Nick Borgia, and we thank you so much for tuning in.